Good morning, everyone. First, I want to thank you, the organizers, for inviting me here. I want to thank Martin for a fantastic introduction at the beginning of this session, of course. And I also have to thank the organizers for the title of the talk, because this is not a title I would have thought of myself, because I was always under the impression that Svalbard was quite centrally placed, and then deciding from the previous talks, I think it is quite central. So I don't know what age, or what is that age, but we'll see. We'll start talking, perhaps we'll find that age and then see how close to that age we will get. So this will be by no means a traditional science talk like the previous ones, so if you're here for heavy science, please feel free to leave and go take an early lunch. Will not be held against you. But if you want to see some nice pictures and hear stories, well, nobody's leaving, so I guess nobody's interested in science here, really. I mean, but then what I'm going to do is basically take a little walkabout in Svalbard, show. Give a sort of a short introduction to UNIS, sort of tell about the history, how it got started, how it has developed, what it is today, what we do there. And then towards the end, as much as I have time, to tell a little bit about the research and the research collaboration. Some of that was already mentioned here by Marian and Martin, with whom we have worked for years, but there is a lot more also with Estonian colleagues here. And tell a little bit about that research, and that acute part of research that the communities, small communities like in Longyearbyen are facing now, especially considering these sort of rapid changes in the environment. But since it's been a while from my last talk here in Estonia, and then this is my first engagement for the Estonian Polar Club, which I actually learned about 20 years ago from Bob Headland when I was still a postdoc in Cambridge. But it is my first talk here for the Polar Club. I'll say a few words about myself as well. So I am a marine geologist by education and training, and I work with a lot with seafloor mapping using different geophysical methods, sedimentological methods, and I use these data for studying the modern processes in the Arctic, ice-ocean interactions, but I also use these data for longer-term reconstructions of glacial history, climate history, paleoceanography, these sort of things. And I work at the University Center in Svalbard since 2008, but my first time in Svalbard was actually a couple of years earlier, so that was in 2006 on board of the British icebreaker James Clark Ross, where we had a fantastic cruise to basically around the Svalbard, and that was the first seafloor mapping, scientific seafloor mapping in Svalbard waters. It was a fantastic weather for 3 weeks. It was calm. The sea was flat like a mill pond, so it left quite an impression on me. And it wasn't then a surprise when about a year later, a position in marine geology became available at the University Center. So I applied. They invited me over for an interview. I flew up, and by the evening of the same day, then they offered me a position there. So then went back to Cambridge, told my wife that, well, start packing. We're going to move to Svalbard now. We've been offered the job there, and that was a 3-year contract, and that was 16 years ago. So this is how it happened. But since then, since I've been at the University Center, there have been many more cruises after that James Clark Ross cruise in 2006 on different vessels, from icebreakers to these small autonomous robots that we've been using to map the seafloor, map the glaciers in different parts of Svalbard. And after 16 years, there is still fjords I haven't been to that are completely uncharted, so there is a lot of work still to be done. I don't think my lifetime will be enough there, so that somebody will have to take over at some point. So the university center in Svalbard, when we talk about the research and the education, it's quite central there. It started in 1993, and it got started from a political decision, and it's been said that this was a fastest political decision-making process in a modern Norwegian history, because its decision was made in 1992 on a so-called study cruise. It's a very nice format when it's about a week-long cruise on board of a vessel into the fjords of Svalbard somewhere. And into that cruise, then there are people from there are like decision makers, there are politicians, members of government and the parliament who go there, and then there are scientists, members of local community, and then this is where they meet, talk about Svalbard issues, and at that point there was, of course, one driving politician, member of parliament at that time, who then decided that, well, now the time is right to establish a center university center in Svalbard, and the motivation was really to promote the Norwegian polar research there and to take advantage of these unique conditions we have in Svalbard in terms of studying Arctic. And of course then to diversify the local community as well, because you have to keep in mind that the Longyearbyen was built on coal, so it was a very like a coal miners town from the beginning. So there wasn't a lot of diversity of activity or economy in that community. So that would be like a new pillar to provide a ground for like a family-based community in Svalbard. So this is how it all got started. This is the university center today. Martin showed you already. So the original building, actually, this one. And of course, I mean, in the beginning, the political decision-making can be fast in 1 year, but you don't build a house in 1 year. So the first 2 years, UNIS was actually operating on rented rooms, and then this building was built in a few years later. And then in 2006, the UNIS had already grown too large for that building. So an extension was then built, which is about 2 to 3 times larger than the original building here. And of course, I mean, the initial growth was fast, and because of the fast growth, there are always growth difficulties. It was a common joke that the UNIS was like a kid who was sort of growing from the childhood into the teenage years, and all these mood swings and stuff. So we developed our course programs. We got too enthusiastic. They sort of offered too many courses. That exploded the budget, so we had to cut back again. And so it was going a little bit of back and forth. But UNIS's purpose has always been to educate the next generation of Arctic experts, and that has not changed. And just recently, a sort of a Svalbard white paper came out, Svalbard melding, and this is where the government sets its or gives his vision for Svalbard and a kind of a mandate for the people who are there, and there is a role of UNIS is rather clearly stated now. Today, UNIS is I also have to say that UNIS is it's a rather unique organization. So although we are a university center, we are not a full accredited university. That means we do not have our own students, we don't issue degrees. So all the students who study at UNIS, they have a home university somewhere else. It's either in Norway or somewhere else in the world. So but we do teach ECTS affiliated courses. That is that the credit transfer back to the home universities is fairly easy. That's the streamlined process. And then the new building added in 2006. That's quite a architectural pearl in itself. I mean, it's lots of wood with glass and copper elements and open spaces, not the single straight angle anywhere, and it's it's not most logical either, so it's fun to see the students come in and struggle for the first week always to find the lecture rooms and labs in the building. So we have 4 departments: geology, biology, geophysics, and technology, plus an Arctic Safety Center. And today we have about 850 students a year at the university center. They're not there all at the same time, of course, because we usually have a full semester undergraduate students, and then we have graduate students, master, PhD students, who come, and for them we offer so-called block courses. So these are 5 to 6 week long intensive courses, and then the students can then either pick one or several of those from our course offer. Courses are very popular. Most of them have a rather long waiting lists. Very international, 40+ nations are present. About 50% come through Norwegian universities, and another 50% are international. Teaching language in English, and given the size of UNIS, then we make up a pretty big portion of the Longyearby's population of people, including students who are then affiliated with UNIS. So about 1/5 to 1/4 of the population of Longyearbyen. So we are quite a big player in the local community. So here it is, UNIS, the old part is there. This is all the new part built in 2006. But there are also other buildings in town that are then either part of UNIS or affiliated with UNIS. So UNIS also started a sort of a housing program for its staff and employees, because Longyearbyen is it looks like a normal Arctic little town from afar, but when you come there, there is no free housing market. You can't rent or can't find an apartment to rent on a free market. So it's quite difficult to settle there. So all the housing is provided through your employers in Svalbard, and so does the university. The university has a very nice little guest house for our visiting guest lecturers, like Martin has been coming up there, and I think Maria has stayed in there as well. Just a few years ago, a new student housing was built. That's for all our students. So it's a quite a nice town. So there is lots of the hospital here. There are lots of pubs around here, even a church somewhere down here. So everything is there basically, and the students seem to like it very much. I mean, then it's very easy after the classes, go climb on one of these mountain tops, and then you go ski down, and then go home and then cook a meal and stuff. So they are just sit in the snow and meditate, or work on your suntan, or I don't know what these guys are doing. Sometimes it's difficult to tell what goes about in student heads, but they definitely seem to be enjoying, and so they're definitely happy. I mean, I know that girl is happy about getting 2 sea ice cores and then going back to the lab, and that sometimes it's all you need for happiness. And if you don't believe me, try it yourself. Go get a sort of couple of sea ice pieces and take them home and see if it works or not. But anyway, my point is that it is very student friendly, and the Longyearbyen was voted by the students for 2nd year in a row now as the best student town in Norway, and you see, Oslo came 3rd only, so it's actually pretty good. So we are happy about that. But as been now mentioned by Maria and Martin several times over, is that all these fieldwork, field-based, and UNIS is all about field-based education. We are very aware of that the university center was not built, to bring students up in the Arctic and then put them in a classroom and then only show the Arctic through the window. So we take them out in the field as much as we possibly can, but that requires equipment, logistics, training. So and actually most of that new extension that was built 2006 to the UNIS is all about logistical spaces. So that's where we have the clothing for fieldwork, boots, helmets, overalls, all the field equipment, also some laboratories. And our logistical services have become very efficient over the years, so they can put several groups of students per day. We have 20, 25 people in a group, We have example here. This is what students should check against. So this is how you should look like before you go out. And they're getting better and better at this. So it's, we provide everything that is needed, but the training is also a big part of it. So you have to know what to do in a field, how you behave. And our logistical services have also then developed a kind of a module-based safety training. So it's given at the beginning of every semester. It takes 1 full week, and you learn a lot there. I mean, they can students are taken out. They can practice either the glacier rescue or snow and avalanche rescue, snow scooter driving, polar bear protection, small boat operations. It varies a little bit of the time of the year when you come and what sort of field work you're facing, but these are very practical hands-on training. So there you go out there in a field to how to drive a snow scooter. They on purpose, dig the snow scooter into the snow, so you have to dig it out, and then you see how hard it actually is. So this is all that goes into the education, and then we actually have a courses developed along these lines. You can get study credits for these courses. Plus, how to keep your, if somebody falls into the sea or through the sea ice, how to keep them warm and until the rescue arrives, which can take a long time in the Arctic. In terms of research and teaching, they are, of course, very closely integrated. So we teach what we do the research on ourselves. And there is actually, well, we're kind of a niche university in a way that we teach environmental and Arctic sciences only. But that then is like all across the board, from the space physics and atmospheric processes, including the northern lights, to, of course, geology. Well, Longyearbyen was built on coal, so it started all from geology, oceanography, meteorology, glaciology, so on and so forth. So there is a way. There is like 2 more lectures on that alone. But I have like 2 minutes left because of you, Martin, because you spoke too long. So now I go into these couple of research topics, and I skip the slides I had on you because that's as a punishment for you. Then it's talking too long. Couple of examples of the research we do, and then I chose 2 projects as examples which are most relevant to the Longyearbyen as a local community, because we are a big player in a local community, and we are expected to also provide services and be part of that community. So it's not only the basic science we do, there is a lot of applied science and also looking into the future and helping in the adaptation to the environmental change that is happening, and also not least this change to the shift to from the coal to the renewables, and that is it sounds easier than it is done. So I have 1 minute per project, roughly. One is the snow and avalanche research that kind of got a lift up, and that happened in 2000. After the 2015 and 17, there were 2 avalanches that came down this very slope, and then there were 2 fatalities in the first avalanche, and then the second one just destroyed a couple of houses, and that happened during the very warm winter. It was a period of about a week. Was very warm, a lot of snow, a lot of wind, and that packed up the snow along the slope that then eventually came down. And that had never, well, avalanches are normal there in Svalbard, but they never hit town that hard. And of course, that did some damage in the village. And then that, of course, triggered a very rapid response, because it had 2 people died in it, and that should not happen. I mean, it's when people die, it happens. It happens almost not every year, but people do get caught by avalanches, either by hiking or snow scootering, and then field studies were commenced. There was sort of in collaboration with Telenor, on a real-time snow depth sensors were put out on the slopes, and a lot of modeling studies were done. And then the areas were determined which were most avalanche prone. And then there Snow fences were put up. This work is actually still ongoing. There is a big stone wall was built at the foot of the very same slope, and it's all to protect the houses from the avalanches. And then Longyearbyen is now part of the avalanche warning system as well, so we get daily from November to May, we get a avalanche warning or avalanche forecasts for 24 and 48 hours on a daily basis, so we know though this situation is now monitored very closely. There is also a large reconstruction of the riverbed because the glaciers are melting, and especially in the beginning of the melt season when there is a lot of snow melting, lots of water in a system, the river can rise quite a bit, and a big part of the town is all built on the riverbank here, basically. So this is prone to flooding, for instance. And another little ravine here, which is famous for its slush avalanches. And you see all these walls here. This is also constructed by a man here, and there are lots of snow fences also put into that ravine. It's all to prevent these slush avalanches to hit the town. So that's the ravine. But I don't know, I think I should break here because the clock is going nervous there, it's blinking, and I think the lunch may be waiting. So I don't know if I'm allowed another 3 minutes or not. If not, then I'll break. Okay? Okay. Thank you so much. And then another project I want to mention here is the Longyearbyen CO2 lab. And that started about 20 years ago. Well, it's about the same time when I went there, so 16, 17 years ago. And in the beginning, that had a noble goal then to make Longyearbyen an emission-free town. And that was then to capture all the CO2 that is coming from the smoke pipe of the local coal-fired power plant and inject it back into the ground. And for that, then they drilled like 8 boreholes in total. I think the deepest was about 1 kilometer deep. And of course, the geological structures they found were very suitable for such a carbon capture and storage project. So there is a reservoir rocks below, like a relatively high porosity, low pore pressure, suitable for pumping in more CO2 in there. And these were covered then by so-called cap rocks, like shales, tight rocks that would then keep the CO2 from escaping. Plus, we had in the Arctic, we have a secondary seal in terms of permafrost, which also keeps the gas in the ground. What they didn't expect is that two of these wells that they drilled, they actually started to produce methane and in quite significant quantities. So this is one Christmas Eve. These valves, the wells had to be capped because there was so much methane coming in. Thousands of cubic meters a day. So it built up the pressure, and that pressure had to be released. I mean, the holes had to be capped, and the gas gets in there, because otherwise, if you let it out in a calm day, it just may fill the entire valley floor, and then it takes one spark and half the Longyearbyen may be gone. So every month or so, then the technician came up from the mainland, and then we just burned off the gas, and even though, I mean, the project produced scientifically solid knowledge that, we could, geologically, it is feasible to do this CCS or carbon capture and storage project in Longyearbyen, but then a couple of other non-scientific problems came out. One was that the Longyearbyen's power plant, which was producing 60 to 70,000 cubic meters, 60 to 70,000 tons of CO2 per year, is not nearly enough to justify this CO2 liquefying plant in Longyearbyen, because that needs large quantities. It's not cheap to liquefy CO2. And of course, this political decision to put down the coal mining and shift to renewables came a lot earlier than that was expected. So that kind of made this sort of a project in Longyearbyen obsolete. However, it did produce valuable data that can be applied elsewhere, and data and knowledge. And because it had many partners, it was like a seed for many other collaborations and offspins of that project. One of these, just one slide on this, is a Barents Sea source rocks and hydrocarbon seeps. And this is where we started to study the methane underground, because, well, we knew that there is a lot of methane, at least in places, and then, but where it's coming from, how it's escaping, and this is kind of the project that Martin was talking about. And Martin was also part of this, or the postdoc at UNIS for 2 or 3 years, and well, there you see, that's the man. Fishing for the gas-charged sediments in the fjords, drilling from the sea ice, and this work is still ongoing up to today, because, I mean, these methanes and the significance of it, Martin was just talking about, so I'm not going to repeat that. And a couple of final slides. The renewable energy shift is actually happening in Longyearbyen, so it's the mines in Svea, which were the biggest coal mines, they were closed already 2015. As of last year, October, this local coal-fired power plant was closed down, so this is not producing anything anymore. Instead, we have now diesel generators and some battery storages for reserve. The local mine that is still producing about 100,000 tons of coal per year is going to be closed next summer, and they estimate it's going to take another year to dismantle the equipment and then return it back to the nature, basically. And yes, transitional phase is now on diesel, and then they are working on the new energy plan for Longyearbyen that would then be based on renewable energy. Transitional is based on diesel. It's a temporary solution, but, well, we all know there is nothing more permanent than a temporary solution, so we'll see how long that will take. But anyway, the new energy plan, the first draft is out. It includes different sources, wind, solar, geothermal, because of this CO2 project, we know what the temperature gradients are in the ground. It is possible to use the geothermal energy there. We have other problems there with, we don't want to melt the permafrost, because the entire town is built on permafrost. You start thawing the permafrost, all the buildings sort of collapse and stuff. So there are lots of technical problems. There are a couple of test sites. It is being tested out, these renewable energy. And there are lots of partners. I mean, local partners, Stora Norske, UNIS, this is where the know-how and technical expertise comes, but there are many more industry partners in this to develop these solutions. And it has large implications for not only Longyearbyen, but once we have these technologies and technological solutions in place, these could be applied in many places all across the Arctic. I mean, there are 4 million people living in the Arctic, and there are like hundreds, if not thousands, sort of such off-grid communities like Longyearbyen who have to produce their own energy and heat and electricity. So, and these solutions, most of these communities now live entirely on diesel. So these solutions are to be developed. This is all the innovation that we need, that Mario was also mentioning. So so this is, we live in interesting times. So it's and I think I shut up now, and I can take the questions over the lunch or in the evening. I don't think we have time for the. But that's how our field trips look like in a nice and bright day. Thank you very much.